welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. And welcome back my friend RJ Grimshaw, the AI CEO, just for a casual, candid conversation on AI. RJ, it's great to have you on here again, sir, and look forward to this. I had to hit record because we were just going into some weeds on some things, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just have this conversation freely here. So,
We've got to learn to turn on the recorder when we just log in because there's some great snippets from that just in general conversation of life, of the marketplace, of the world. Just some takes from both of us as we see different things because we're kind of running in different circles now in terms of the people we're working with and the people that we're seeing, but they all have the same challenge. It's just magnified if it's larger, that's all.
yeah, I'll just make sure I hit the record button after I talk about this.
That's true too, for both of us, for both of our sakes, professionally speaking. You know, you gotta be very careful with that. That why in the road all the time with Jesse when you're with him. Which way am I gonna go? So
Always choose the right path.
always the right path, the right path. I'll leave it as that. Let's move on before I say anything that gets us in trouble. So, curious, you made
All
a
right.
comment before we jumped on here in regards to, we're talking about AI and more, of course, but from your perspective, I'd be curious of how you're using AI today for Consult Disrupt, within your business. I'd be curious to understand that.
Sure. I mean, I I wish I would have used started using it a lot sooner. But I'll just kind of answer your question in regards to proposals. I have different projects in my tenant that it's like, okay, hey, this one's just EF cares related, or hey, this one is regarding prospecting, or this is a particular project that we're working on that's bigger. So I'm trying to just add as much information, RJ, as I can to them. So it's like, hey, I have another opportunity like this one. You know, this is what I'm thinking. Here's the notes that I have. Here's my documentation for something similar. Let's talk about the best approach to,
Okay.
is this business that we're a good fit for? And, let's talk about the best approach to solving this client's challenge.
Yeah.
And, it's very candid. There are some times where I sit there and I'm like, I've talked about this, no M dashes, or just certain things, but I'm like, I don't sound like that. And it's, but I've never invested the time to, I guess, there pre-prompts or scripts that you can drop
Mhm.
into something before. And I've never invested the time and energy to do that. All I do is just enter my thoughts on there, inside.
Right.
So I'm probably doing it completely wrong, but now I'm at
Now,
the point where it's like,
that timeout. There's not in the world that we live in. There's no wrong or right. There really isn't. Now, is there a right that we can improve and amplify? Heck yeah. And that's the whole idea of this. As long as you're using that muscle that you're logging into OpenAI and you're using it for different things, that's where we can start amplifying that relative. Are you using projects? Because if you use a project, you can now start the threads where you're talking about business development and you can put in the knowledge bases of your proposals and it can read off of that knowledge. And I don't want to get technical or things of that nature, but it's as long as you're using it is the most important thing. And then trying to figure out different ways for consistency of how you're leveraging it. And then we get real deep. I mean, we get really deep in terms of, we build custom GPTs with RAG knowledge bases where it's very specific off of guardrails. So when you're asking the transponder, the GPT itself, to answer these questions, we've locked out the internet and we've just focused on the knowledge base. So you know that the accuracy of your answers are coming back. Now, with that being said, I need to tell a
hmm,
quick story that I read this morning, and I forget where I read it, but I've been saying this, unfortunately, for the last 3 or 4 months because it happened to me. So I'm speaking from it's happened to me about what's I'm starting to see more and more now, and really this plays into kind of yourself saying, "Hey, I'm using it. I'm not sure it's right or wrong." There is a wrong way. The only wrong way is if you don't validate the contextual knowledge that comes out of your outputs. And then you start sending it to your boss as facts. So I was reading an article where this guy or kid, probably younger, set all these projections to the president of the company for sales focus for next year. And he just realized after, he did this back in November, just realizing now the president's looking at the data and saying these numbers aren't factual. Where did you come up with these numbers? Because all it was is synthetic data because he never pressure checked the data. And that's part of that prompting that we build in. So it actually goes back and pressure, it literally pressure tests the data to make sure it's factual and accurate, and there's no synthetic data included in your output. They didn't do that. And that is, I think we're going to hear that over and over and over again, because what's exciting is that even if you can't prompt well, but you start using these tools, it's magical. It really is. The outputs and the production and the quality and the knowledge, it's cool. But the challenge is if you're new to it, you cannot take it as granted facts. And that's where for 2 years, contextual knowledge has been the leading word that I talk about, because these tools will get you in trouble. I'm guilty as charged as well. I'm like, I ran this through GPT and it says this. It's like, that's wrong.
Yeah, I was working on a project the other day, and it was just an overview of like 2025, and had my different notes and different things that we was working on last year and so on, successes, goals for this year. Threw it in the chat GPT, it gave me an executive summary, threw it in the slide pilot. And when I sent it over, the person was like, I can't edit this. And there's like 4 spelling errors. And I was like, oh, I'm like, there was no spelling errors in the executive document because you read through that. But then I was looking at it,
Right.
I'm like, what is that? I'm like, why are you missing? It's like I sent a picture on Timo and asked them to put it on a shirt. And I'm like, what is this nonsense? And then there was another situation, RJ, where I use it now for some emails. I mean, you've seen my emails from a sales perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
lately for more peer to peer,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very short, concise, to the point. That's just how I am. But there's certain things where you just have to come across a little bit more knowledgeable, and I've been leveraging it more for that when it comes to specific responses. And I sat there and I was wondering the other day, because it took me 30 minutes between gathering my thoughts, proofreading it, Jesseizing it. And then, does this make sense? And I'm like, I think it would have been better if I just wrote the damn email by myself.
Yeah. So it's a great point. So I sit at my desk when I'm working with these huge pieces of white paper. These are my mini whiteboards. And to your point, before I start anything now with any type of GPT model, doesn't matter if it's Claude, if it's OpenAI, if it's Gemini, I start and I actually use our Able framework, and I don't want to, say I analyze everything, but I start with what the objective is what I'm trying to accomplish. And then I also make sure from a constraint perspective that I'm staying in the boundaries of what I'm trying to accomplish. So with that being said, if I'm working on marketing or sales, I want a sales GPT based off of certain knowledge bases that I've built in. That's where the amplifying comes in, Jesse, where you've been using it, but now we start layering in other things, like we could take all of your videos and develop your persona as Jesse, and then we would build a GPT that after you would write the email, you could Jesseeize it. And it's really easy with a connector just to say, hey, make sure this sounds like Jesse and concise in all the words that you want, and then it will come out and it'll give you the consistency that you're looking for in those. But again, it's either do you take the time to build, or do you take the time to learn? And there's no right. Again, I had a guy call me this week, which is great. I've been working with their company for a year and a half now. He calls me and he says, my wife and my son are leaving for the weekend, and I want to code. I want to build something. I want to build something. And this guy's really smart and he's into it and he's a sales guy. So I said, okay, let me build you some prompts. Let me send you some videos. And he was in Claude Code. And so Monday morning, I'm like, hey, what'd you build? He built out a whole automation for his retirement funds tied into his checking account with a dashboard. The reason I bring that up is if you have first of all, the will to want to learn these tools and understand these tools, it produces some really cool things that will make your life, forget about business, just your life, more efficient and better. But again, it goes back to the time of dedicating to do that, and learning these. And when I met him a year and a half ago, he was already he was using Grok. He was in of learning these. But again, I gave him because as a client, I gave them 11 other factors of when you're building agents that people are completely missing. Because what's going on right now in the marketplace, unfortunately, and there's no one at fault, but the legacy technology vendors, they're protecting their turf, and they're rightfully so, because then you've got startups like myself and other organizations that are coming into the market and they're saying, hey, try us. We have to learn to play together. But in the same respect, the technology or the legacy technology vendors weren't going to sit down and say, hey, walk me through your SOPs before we build this out, because I need to understand your triggers, your escalations, the human in the loop, the governance of the AI in terms of when it's escalated. There's so much. It's like mixing soup. I call it making soup. And if you forget one ingredient, the soup will taste terrible. And it also depends on what you're trying to achieve in terms of that agent. Is it a customer service agent for an inbound? Is it an outbound collection voice agent, which is going to be huge? And I'm working with an organization out of Denmark that's actually helping us build some voice agents so we can leverage them in terms of even from a welcome call to a collection call to say the ACH bounces. Okay. We could set up automation where it automatically kicks out an email to the client as well as a phone call from an agent. And when I say agent, people are scared of, well, I don't want it sounding like AI. No, we write the script where it doesn't sound like AI, and it's very real. But we also disclose to the person up front that it is an AI agent. We're not trying to not be transparent. We're trying to help them understand that it is an agent. And the reason why we're calling is for this purpose to make your life more efficient and our life more efficient. Because the one thing that we're all limited with is time. We only get 24 hours a day. So I come from a perspective, what can we do, one, for our client that we're serving to make their life more efficient and give them back time? And then a byproduct of that is their customers. It's the same thing we did at Unify. We looked at everything from the customer journey perspective to enhance it, to improve it. And then naturally, everything else comes with that, growth and things of that nature.
Sure. Yeah. And then, yeah, there's so much. And like everything you said right there, there's a part of it where it's like, do I really want to learn that? It sounds daunting. I don't know if I have time to do that and maintain my business and personal life. Sure, you
Uh,
have a good response to that
I,
incident.
you're doing it the right way, Jesse. I think at times, I said this the other night to Marianne. I said, I don't know if I was just starting right now, if I would even dive into it, because remember when OpenAI came out, it was just OpenAI. So you're only working within OpenAI. Now there was other tools like Jarvis that I was using and Gamma and other tools that you were using that had AI sprinkled in it. But now, where do you start? Do you use Claude? Do you use Grok? Do you use Manus? Do you use OpenAI? And they're all going to be telling you different things of how you should use it. I still use all of them, Perplexity included, but I'm finding myself to start identifying, okay, I don't think I need Perplexity as much as I used to from a search perspective because it would bring back the best data, real-time data and market sentiment. I can maybe use Grok instead because there's at the end of the day, there's too much. And Jesse, the other thing too is like there's areas within AI that I do not focus, like the voice thing. I can't go learn another skill or another tool to educate. But however, I understand the underlying functionality, the understanding of the underlying foundational skills to build them. And it's no different than building a voice agent versus an AI agent. And then the other thing that puts us in front of, I don't want to say in front of other providers in this space, is I have 25 years of knowledge and I'm a document hoarder. Okay. I've saved every document from the time I started in 1999. So I'm able to take that and use those documents to build out SOPs, best practices, and then just tweak it to the client. So what we're doing is we're taking that discovery time that typically is whatever, and we're condensing it because we're already walking in with the institutional knowledge that a tech provider doesn't have, or if they have at a high level, but they still have never been an operator. And there's a distinct difference. And I'll also say I've never been I didn't come up through tech. I financed a ton of it, but in the same respect, if I don't know something, I use tools now, okay, and then validate the tools, but I'll just pick up the phone and call somebody, um, and get the right answer, or at least try and get validation of the answer.
Yeah, and that's one of the bigger challenges that I face, and I think you kind of see it sometime when we do some of our cares meetings, right? where it's like, hey, we can automate that. And I'm like, no, I don't want to automate that. I want to make a phone call. I want to have a conversation because this person's been supporting us for 5 years and it's a touch point and it means that to me. So that's where I still fight it a little bit.
You
I know
rightfully
it's
so. You should fight it. You should fight it. And I tell you that all the time. Your superpower is being in front of people and building relationships. That is your superpower. You're good at it. People like you. You bring knowledge and value to the relationship. So that's why people are willing to take your phone call. And you're also doing the right thing in terms of EF cares. Um, but in the same respect, I would be curious of how many lessors track within their CRM. How does the client like to be communicated to? Text, email, or phone call?
I am I am slipping a little bit. I am finding myself texting more just because it's just uh but then again, like I this is my back-to-back podcast. As I'm on this, I've had
Mhm.
3 CEOs of monitor 100 companies text me about some things that are coming up. So it's kind of like a mutual type thing. I agree with you. I mean, how would the
Yeah.
easiest form of communication be? And I feel bad because I don't pick up the phone very often anymore
No one does nowadays.
unless I have a set meeting with somebody.
Right.
I don't just call. And I think maybe it's because all the BS calls that we get coming in.
Well, okay. It is all the BS calls, but I also think that intent and being intentional with your workday and being extremely focused and locked in because there's so many distractions nowadays, self-inflicted as well as just outside sources, that a lot of times I, I'll turn my phone over for text messages if I'm working on a project or, you know, very focused on something. And primarily family more than anything else are like 3 hours to a response to its text. I'm like, I was locked in a meeting or locked somewhere in terms of head down. You have to be intentional. My word for the year is 2 words: stay focused. Because it's so easy. New AI tool, new LLM. Look at this, look at that. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. It's like, nope. Stay true to who you are. Stay true to what you're doing, and stay true to where the market needs your help. Now, with that being said, I feel for every single individual that's in any industry right now that has not had a strategic rollout around AI, and a lot of organizations haven't. And when I say a rollout of AI, it's really just looking for areas within your organization that has friction and handoffs and start talking about those. And that's where we come in and actually facilitate and then build out actually an AI champion group. I found some companies go too large. They'll have 35 people on this committee, which is way too many. The right number is between 8 and 10. And they don't have to be technology focused. What you want is process focused people that are very process oriented, very process focused, and pull in. And what you're trying to do is extrapolate their knowledge, their wisdom. I found it clicked with me last week. I put a post on LinkedIn. I was always focused on SOPs, SOP, and I drive you nuts about SOPs. It's all about SOPs. However, with SOPs, that's only a part.
You spelled soap wrong, dude.
Yeah, you get to, yeah, no, I complete, yeah, it's overbearing. However, it dawned on me last week, SOPs is really only a piece of it because if you really break down a job description, 70% of it's fluff. 30% is actually what the human needs to do from a task perspective. What's missing
Just
is
throw a
that
bunch,
wisdom of the person.
just throw a bunch of crap in there just to make it look like a
Well,
more elaborate than it needs to be. And it's like, no, you're still a custodial engineer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But now I'm not taking away what people want to do and how they're proudful of their work and things of that nature. But in the same respect, back to that person, especially if they rolled out some type of tech, which a lot of organizations have in terms of AI or different tools that are coming to market, they're trying to be an early adopter. Well, think about this: that person is in 2 systems or 3 systems, and before they even started that, there's a roadmap. We call it AI eligible. We won't even take on an AI project in terms of AI until we feel you're deemed eligible for that. And that's completely different from everybody else. If you want a product, I'm going to walk in and, tech company, and I'm not knocking them again, will sell you the product because you think it's going to fill their need. However, if the foundation isn't set in terms of are your SOPs documented, it's a simple yes or no. And if they're not, that's okay. We have a tool that'll help you with them. Where is your data? Do you have a data dictionary? Because if you don't have everything I'm outlining in terms of, the data and the SOPs, and then the SOPs aren't written for traditional SOPs. We're now building SOPs for forward looking, future looking with
Mm.
anchored to tasks. So it's a completely different animal where you think, I'm just going to build an SOP. That's great. You're building the SOP, but you're not building it for forward looking potential around automation. And you have to have that. And no one is discussing it. No one is talking about the foundational. Actually, one guy who's a mentor of mine talks about it. And that's what's been pretty cool too. I've been able to build friendships with some very senior people in AI that have been doing this a lot longer than I. So I just have the vision and the energy. And then they'll tell me, no, you can't do that, sort of like a credit manager. You can't do that, RJ. That's crazy. Makes sense to me. But I run it off of Mark, who's our CTO, and he'll say, no, from a tech perspective, it's not ready yet. Or I'll run it off of Bree, who's our implementation uh, from an SOP perspective, no, you're missing this. Because what I'm trying to do with them and our clients is really revamp the ecosystem and the way work is done. Because what holds everybody back is that constant loop of work not being done. It's the steps that we didn't get yet, right? How many calls do you sit in? It's like, well, the steps didn't come in, or the insurance didn't come. And that's just that vicious circle of the loop versus having it everything completed and flow through based off of that workflow and SOP. Sorry, I get passionate and excited about this stuff. It's just,
Oh, I like it, especially when I can recognize like maybe 1/5 of what you're saying. It's great. It's
well,
fantastic. But there's a lot of people
that's,
out there smarter than me, so that's good. It's good.
and believe me, if I'm saying it, it's not that smart. Okay, it's just I'm a good student and learn from it, and also the years of experience.
Or
It's just like a lot of people have asked me. Well, one, a lot of people ask me, well, how did you get into this? And I got into this just by accident in terms of Catapult AI in 2022 was the first AI company that I invested in, and then when OpenAI came along. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then I was talking about entrepreneurship and innovation. Well, if this isn't the most innovated new item to come to market in the last since the internet, I don't know what is. So that's when I made the
or
conscious decision to go all in and learn as much as I can. And then my good buddy Jeff wrote a book too. And as I said, it's pretty cool with the circle you're able to build. I become friends with the Rose from PayPal. She's their UI AI leader, researcher. Um, because every day you're learning. That's what the cool piece of this. Unlike, when you do an equipment leasing and small ticket, it's kind of,
rinse, repeat. How do we do
yeah,
better?
yeah. But that's where I was always looking, what can we do better for the customer? What can we do better for the customer? What can we do better with the process? Well, now we're doing that within, AI and these new tools. So with that being said, if you're watching this and you're trying to wonder where should I spend my time in terms of learning these tools, I continue to recommend learning how to prompt. Study how to prompt accordingly. And the other thing is that there's a great tool called Whisper, WHISPR, Whisper. It's a funky spelling. That's
Whisper,
everything in AI is
whisper
now.
without
Yeah,
whisper without the e.
Yeah, no, it's WISPR flow. And it's a tool that you're
Yeah.
able to actually talk to your computer. There's no more typing. So with Whisper, I'm
Hmm.
able to average about 155 words a minute, and it learns based off of my communication style in terms of the words I use and things of that nature. So my production time relative to work has sped up tremendously. Now, the
So
bad side,
what's that like? What's that like when someone in your family walks by and they just see you kind of just talking to yourself? Um,
yeah.
yeah, I'm just messing with you, man. Just
No, well,
more,
it's even gonna be worse when you got everyone in offices talking,
right?
because as soon as
So
you,
you on the phone? You on the phone? No,
yeah, you on
I'm
the
on my
phone.
computer. Leave me alone. Look.
It's really weird when I'm talking to my cell phone, and typically if I'm in the living room in a room with a family, I'll say, "Hey, I'm just talking to my phone real quick," and I'll say something in there. But that was a game changer for me because at that point now, remember, LLMs are supposed to be conversational large language models. So now I'm talking and not typing. And in the English language, when you type, it's completely different from when you're verbally communicating. And
Sure.
the other thing that I have to warn everyone about is when you really become very good at prompting, and I have met some amazing prompters in our industry already. You become very literal in your communication style, which will drive your wife nuts and everybody else around you because there's no gray
It's
area.
well, I just wonder sometimes too, where it's like, and I think I've made some jokes where it's like, your what is your first thing your AI do? Well, depending on how you probably more realistic, but oh no, it's fantastic. Oh no, you're doing so great. Oh no, I love where your head's at. Oh no, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, see, I'm great because this thing is so smart and it keeps telling me how great I am.
I always red team. It will boost your confidence, but I always red team it. You could either say, "Hey, red team above" to make sure it's factual, or pressure test it. I do that almost to the point where sometimes I get in the terrible loop where I'm pressure testing, pressure testing, pressure testing, and finally you got to make a decision. Like, okay, this is ready to go. Let's go. But the other thing it does too, Jesse, is that it starts, and Mark says this all the time, my CTO, he'll say, these tools make you become impatient, unfortunately, because it makes you do things that would usually it could take you months. You can whip up in a half an hour. And what I mean by that is, you know, we now have an organization that we can build websites, and they'll build a state of the art website in 4 hours. And when I say state of the art, I mean SOE online, your SOE, your schema, your Google Analytics, everything electronic in terms of the onboarding of a client, your Google reviews. And I feel for people
Yes.
that have built websites.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like one of those things where I think of how long it takes sometimes to do these output documents from like our discoveries that you do. And now it's just like, hey, we have a format, we have a format. Obviously, it's different for everyone, but
Yeah,
it's just like,
there.
I think some of the frustrations that some of these uh, organizations have, it's like, let's, all right. So I have a question for you. If AI can do some of these professional services work at a fourth of the time that it would take a person to do it, should the company still charge full rate?
See, that's the $1 million question, because is it the value that is it the hours that you're charging for, or is it the value that you're providing them? I'm completely value now. I am not about hours anymore, because if it's just for training hours, that doesn't interest me. I want to find partners that we work with. Is like, if we do
Okay.
this, what's the value
Sorry
in
to throw that. Sorry to throw
extrapolating?
that out there. It was just more of
No,
a question,
it's
right? Because it's like I
well,
can do some of this stuff like lightning fast now, where it's like, right, all right,
okay, but let me put a different spin on it. What happens if, and this isn't happening right now, but what happens in a year and a half or 2 years or a year from now when agents are working properly and confidence is increasing in building them, and all of a sudden you realize this intake agent or this welcome call agent can do 300 welcome calls a month versus the three people that did them, or insurance gathering for certificates. Is the leader of that organization say, well, they can do twice as much now, so we're just going to give them more and we're not going to replace that person? Or do we start trying to level up people to think differently and really build out new jobs in the workflow for them?
sure, sure. I mean, at the end of the day, organizations want to do more work, right? They want to have more revenue with the same amount of the workforce. And a lot of times you go in when you're automating, unless someone's completely dead weight, you're not going to get rid of people. And hopefully you can
No,
repurpose them somewhere else, right?
but that was nice, little tale. But
Dude, like, now,
but
did you have an AI agent that can
you
come
take
like
care of that cat.
manage my farm around the house for me? That'd be great, because like this, come on.
You get a robot from Elon here sooner or later can do that for you.
All right, all right, okay. I
You
didn't
know,
want to
you
see
can
the other
do
tail come up. I
you
apologize for
you
being
you
rude.
you'll be able to yeah, it's maybe take care of it for
Anyhow,
you.
yeah. So now, I saw a press release a couple weeks ago. So you're bringing on staff. It's no longer just RJ.
Yeah.
So you have what, two full-time staffers now?
Yeah, I got Bree, who's in Indianapolis. She bounces
Yeah,
between Indianapolis and Iowa.
yeah,
I met her through an AI group. Was really impressed with her. Then she came out to Ann Arbor and met with Mark and I. at an AI conference here at the Ross School of Business. And
Huh,
then just continue working together. Extremely smart, young, wants to learn, everything you look for in a
sure,
someone when you're
sure.
trying to recruit them to your team. They first I'll have to buy into your vision because what we're doing, there's no business plan for, there's no game plan for, there's no history of like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. These should be our results. A lot of it's like, I'm not sure. Let's get in front of a whiteboard and we'll figure this thing out. Um, but I'm more confident now than I ever have been that we're finally, because you've been with me from day one when I went all in on this. I was a lunatic. I was, trying to learn so much so fast versus slowing down and saying, hey, we're in the first inning of this. We need to figure out, again, I go back to the fundamentals before we sell anything at all. And here's the other thing, Jesse, I would highly recommend for any of your clients that are looking at implementing new software or any piece of software, I would highly recommend to you that part of your discovery phase should be around workflows and tasks and triggers. And it doesn't have to be a long section of it, but in the same respect, to start leading with that from a strategic perspective, which would be a little bit different than other tech vendors. But if they're listening to it, again, all I want is our entire industry to get better using these tools and raise everybody up so more people are employed in the equipment financing and leasing industries.
So RJ, what is I guess a typical engagement with you look like? You just do like short little
No,
introductions, or are they longer term, or like, how does that work?
they can be either or, typically the longer term. So we walk through a four-phase approach with clients in terms of, again, starting with where do you stand relative to your AI strategy, and if you have one. If you don't, that's okay. We give you best practices in terms of this is what you should think about with your leadership team. Start developing them. That is not heavy lifting. It's really light lifting. It's just more high level, macro, high level, where you're going, what you want to achieve like anything in life. If you don't have a goal of where you're going or a direction where you're going, you're never going to get there. And guess what? The line's not going to be straight. There's nothing linear about this. We're going to go all over the place. The next thing we start
Sure.
setting up the foundational piece of it. That's your SOPs, tasks, triggers. There's a lot to go into that, but that's where we handle all of that. Then we come back, okay, and discuss with you from our findings three. We only start with three agents to build in the highest return of investment based off of those three agents. And it's always internal. We will not start with anything external until it's been proven internally in terms of an agent being built. An example of that is an agent that will check for doc completeness before the docs are sent to the funding partner to pick up anything that was maybe missed by the human. And we always have to start with the human by saying, this is not to judge your work. What it's to do is pick up things that we just miss as a human because we're doing so much at a daily basis. So it's more of a coworker to help you as a backstop, just like you use your T value. It's the same thing. It's all these tools, that particular tools to do.
Perfect. Just thought of a new acronym for ABLE. AI, belief, leveling up, evolution. There you go.
There you go.
They rock and roll.
Well, I like yeah, I like scalable, SCABLE, smart, smart choice, analyze, build, leverage, execute. So, because that's the other thing too, Jesse, people don't realize that it's one thing when you build, it's sort of like technology. I use technology as a metaphor. It's sort of like, okay, we're going to build a new tech stack. Well, you just don't build a tech stack and walk away from it. The tech team has to add patches. They have to manage it. They have to manage the efficiency, the downtimes. It's the same thing with these AIs. You have to knowledge the knowledge bases. You have to manage the prompting in terms of the actions that the agent is taking, and then there's a deterioration of that agent knowledge base over time that you have to track. And those are the tools that we're building. Again, I don't want to scare everyone because if this is new to you, it's different. It's very similar to, I remember back on-prem, off-prem, right? Remember that whole, all this,
Yeah,
it'll take time for people to understand and get confidence. But as soon as they see that it works, and that's where I go back to, that's why our customers are contacting us because we're not walking in. There's no pressure to buy a tool. The pressure is to build the foundational aspects. Then, if you want to contact a different tool producer or someone in the market that has tools, great, because we've set up the foundational model for you and able to do that, where they're going to be able to walk in and you're going to be able to say, here you go. Here, this is our workflow. Here's our tasks. Here's the other thing. How many organizations in our industry have a definition for the different verbiages or different words in their organization?
Huh. That actually just came up on last week's podcast.
I actually think we should have one for our entire industry. I think that NIM shouldn't mean the same for me versus somebody else. Present value should mean for whatever. As an industry standard, I really think we should have those, because the time that I have consulted from a tech perspective, I see people talking over each other. And when I don't mean that literally, what I mean by is they're saying the same darn thing, but
Yeah.
they're saying it differently because they're using different words. It's very similar to when consulting clients, and the main pressure point right now, friction points, payoffs, right? I always start with, well, have you defined what a payoff is versus a balance due for your customer service department? Have you trained them on certain words when the client says certain things to pick up on that? In terms of, a client calls in and says, hey, I'm just looking for my balance. They're not looking for a payoff, but how many times do we send them through a full payoff process and they only wanted a balance to update their numbers or update their books? So those are the little things when it comes to the definitions and the verbiage and the institutional knowledge within the organization. Because if you're an undisciplined organization, and I'm starting to see this now more than anything else, if you're undisciplined in terms of your practices and procedures, and you've been lucky by fault, AI is actually going to amplify that, and it's going to hurt you more than anything else, because you're going to be like, why doesn't this damn thing work? Or, I can't get, it's a waste of time, and everybody else is just, plunging along, getting it better, getting it better, getting it better, getting it better. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves. And I'm really interested to see the first finance company that comes out that's AI focused lead in terms of building out the agents, where it'll be omni-channel, where they're going to be able to grow and scale. And that would be their value prop of, hey, we're not going to need 100 people to build $1 billion portfolio. We're going to need 10, because we're going to build out all the agents underneath it. And it will happen. There's no doubt about it. It'll be omni-channel, of course, in the beginning, but in the same respect, as you grow, you don't have to throw bodies at
No, as long as there's some oversight, right?
it. Time
what,
out.
what I'm hearing this entire time you're saying is there still has to be some kind of human oversight on what these
Always.
things are doing.
But
There we go.
the human oversight is critical for success. However, that human oversight, you can actually build out knowledge bases again. How many people offshore right now today, unfortunately, work? A lot of people offshore their work. Okay. What if we can bring some of those?
I have a virtual assistant.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
I'm
I
guilty
do.
as charged as well. So, but wouldn't it be great if you're able to bring some of those jobs back? Because think about this right now, the highest unemployed rate demographic right now is 25 years and younger. Those jobs are drying up. The junior person coming in the organization, because it's some of it is AI, some of there's just not training programs taking place anymore. Some of it has automations already started to take place. I saw that cat. Automation's taking.
Or you could argue that that generation just doesn't want to work. So
Well, uh, that could be part of it. That could be part of
I'm
it.
just I'm just being a smart ass.
I don't know, but I'll agree with you. But we're able to build tools now with GPTs that they can validate the information of what the LLM puts it out. And you might say, well, RJ, wait a
Sure,
minute. If it's coming out, wouldn't it match up? No, because we're going to prompt constraints differently on the test LLM
sure.
to validate the data. So again, that everyone really at the end of the day, and it's hard. It's February 2026, and it seems like it was just 2024. Time is going at such a pace, and it's hard to take the time to really, really look at reorganization within your organization. But the companies that are starting to have that conversation will be well in front of other organizations. What I mean by that is they're going to be able to serve their customers in a capacity where the handoffs and manual processes just expedite everything. The days of the days of, oh, it's going to be 2 days to get that payoff I mentioned before, that's going to be a turnoff to a customer or a dealer. Where if I can go to XYZ leasing company. I get to pay
Turn off
off.
right now.
Yeah, right now.
What do you mean I
Why
get
would
to pay off
I?
tomorrow?
And I go back to the time thing. As I get older, I realize that my time is more valuable than anything else. I'm willing to pay more for a better situation. I'm willing to pay more for a better, even I'm willing to pay more even for a subpar service if it's not taking up my time and my, away from me. Um, and I think that you're going to start to see that more and more with people. If not, we're already seeing it. It's we only get so much time, and we have to make choose where we spend our time and our energy.
Same page, sir. Same page. Well, RJ, it's been a pleasure catching up with you. I'm sure this conversation could keep going on, and I can make fun of me for my lack of knowledge in some of these things. But it's nice to have you on here, again, and congrats on your success. And like, we'll continue to stay in contact because I'm sure as we're spending this last hour with each other, something else has probably changed.
Yeah, well, it has, and I want to give you a compliment on what you've built out in serving our industry with two things. One, with Consult Disrupt, I think that the services and the value that you're bringing to the organization is a fresh perspective, and then the second, and also the people you've been able to surround yourself with and attract to Consult Disrupt, it's been very impressive to watch. And then secondly, and more importantly, from the bottom of my heart, what you're doing with EF Cares, and in terms of the board that you've been able to attract and the foundations you've been able to support and people don't realize, I didn't realize. I mean, I sat on boards before, but when you're an integral part of a board, and I feel I am to a certain degree, you realize like how much work and time that is your own time goes into building something like this. And then what's been really cool to watch is as we've added very impressive people to our board, just the stature and our processes have improved so much where we can serve and help more people. So, but
Well,
you
you,
started, it
you've
was
been
your vision.
Yeah, but you've been by my side pretty much that entire time. So, it takes a village. But no, thank you very much for those kind
Yeah.
words.
So
All
thanks
right.
for having me.
All right. It's great to see you again, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.